I'm Keyoka, the Awkward Black Nomad. I'm a writer, I'm a dog mom, and I traveled across Europe with my two Chihuahua mixes, Bernie and Frank. I'm very excited about my guest today because she was extremely helpful when my dogs and I were having a difficult time getting adjusted in Spain. So I'm going to bring her up and let her introduce herself. All right.
Hello. Hi. Hi, Keyoka. So excited to talk to you again and so excited to be here today. So for everyone seeing us now or later, my name is Daphne. I'm the owner and trainer at Saving Slippers Dog Training. And I'm based in Barcelona as of now, and that's how we met.
Yes, yes. And it occurred to me as I was like coming up questions for this that I actually don't know a lot about you. So why did you get started dog training? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and obviously not a question that I take up much space in with our sessions, right, when we're in training.
Yeah.
But my passion and my love for animals in general comes from very, very early on. I grew up in a tiny little town in Germany where there was just animals everywhere around. And I was fascinated since very little by the bond that people create with their dogs. So I wasn't allowed to have my own dog. We had family dogs in like my uncles and my grandparents that lived nearby, but not our own. So there was always this burning desire to have that myself. And then I started fostering right when I started uni. I was like, yes, that's it, my freedom. I'm gonna now get my foster dog. So to like ease it in. And I was very naive, let me tell you. Like I think a lot of people are when they take their first dog on. I was like, well, I have a couch, I have food bowls, I can buy a dog bed, and then we'll go out 3 times a day. Yay! Check, check, check. All good. Boy, was I wrong. Because the first foster dog really took everything from me emotionally, physically. It was a lot to take in. She had never been in a city before. She didn't know what the leash was, let alone a harness. Like all these things were completely unknown to this dog. Then she was reactive. She had a high prey drive, couldn't let her off leash. There was a long list of etc. So I was in a position like many of my clients are. They're like, well, dang it, what do I do now? And then I started to search on YouTube. I started to search on blog. I started to just try and train some with this dog. And I stumbled upon a lot of not that positive approaches, tried those out as well, sat extremely unwell with me. So then I moved forward, came to positive reinforcement training, and that really made the click. That changed everything for her and for me. And then I was hooked. Then it just became my passion, my hobby to know more about dog training, know more about how dogs work. And then many years later, it became my job after many formations, after going off a little bit in corporate as well. But then I came back to what really, truly is a heartfelt, passion of mine.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about, okay, so when I completed the training, I got this book from you.
Yes.
And you wrote an inscription inside that says you dedicated it to me and my dogs, and you said for a harmonious life together. And like as you're talking, I'm thinking, you know what? That's what she brought into my home. She brought harmony because it seemed like my dogs were always stressed out. I was stressed out because they were stressed out. And it really just disrupted. There was no peace in the house at all. And so I can't thank you enough. I really can't thank you enough. Because like I traveled with them for a year, and the things that I learned in Barcelona, I genuinely took with me in every new location. And I remember at the beginning of our training, that was your concern because you were like, their environment is going
Mm.
to be constantly changing. So there's really no way for them to get used to it. So you're going to have to like keep reinforcing and reinforcing and reinforcing, but that was very helpful to me. So I guess like I want to dive more into the positive reinforcement, but also it kind of seems like you have some, you know, life principles that are really interesting. I remember you bringing up consent with your dog when you and
Yes.
I were talking. Can you kind of go into like some of your own like ideologies and how you work with animals?
Yes. So first off, before I dive in, I want to say thank you. It was such a pleasure working with you, and really to hear that now, what was it? Almost a year back. It makes me so happy. Like this is exactly why I do what I'm doing, to see people like you just shining bright still after working with me, still doing the things, still keeping up with the work, which then as well, it's not a huge amount of work. We can talk about that later, but it's more a shift in perspective, like you just said. So positive reinforcement training is one of the best approaches out there. If we look at how dog training has evolved, we were using dogs as tools when we first bred all the different types of dogs that there are. And as a tool, well, you're not gonna cuddle with your hammer on the couch. You're not gonna take your car in and have dinner with the car. Like dogs had a very difficult stance. And then all of a sudden we brought them in to be pets, to just be lying around, be cute, be going for nice, idyllic walks. And it was a big stretch, let's say, for our current dogs. So positive reinforcement goes off of the idea that whatever, and this is very simplified, but whatever kind of behavior I want to see, I need to reinforce that in a positive manner. So we work a lot with treats, we work with play, we work with cuddles, whatever works best for the dog, but normally treats are fine. And then the more you reinforce that behavior, the more you will see of that behavior. So we're moving away from scolding the dog, hurting the dog, hitting the dog. All of this was 10, 20 years back, that was still the norm. So whenever I had a problem with my dog, I just choke them until they don't do what I'm annoyed by anymore. But what I'm still now trying to bring to people is just the sense of this is a family member now. So let's also move a little bit further up the street from positive reinforcement, and let's think about what is a dog and what is the breed that you have at home? What kind of needs does this animal and this individual have? And treat them as you would treat, and we've talked about that, your best friend. Or if you can't picture that, how about a big adult bear? How would you treat that bear? Like, if there's no way in hell you can cut that bear's paws just because you want it, you should not be doing that with your chihuahua either, just because you can. So that's where the consent part comes in. It's a friend, a family member. Try to see it from their perspective. What would you do if someone just came up to you in the street and tried to hug you just because they love how you look? Man, you can demand people for that. You'd be going to the police. And dogs endure that every single day.
Yeah. And it's this kind of like humanistic perception, right? So it's like understanding that my dogs are individuals and so they have dislikes and they have likes. I was asked before, how do you know when your dog doesn't like a place? And part of that is because of what you taught me. Like I watch their cues. I could see like, okay, are they uncomfortable right now? Is this a situation where I need to remove them so they can feel safer, you know? And they also uh have calming behaviors and they're sleeping more. So like that's a sign that they like the place that they're in. If they're, you know, taking longer naps and they're not barking as much. As opposed to like if they dislike a place when they're like jumping at every sound and they can't seem to rest and they're walking around the house like pacing and pacing and pacing, right? Like, but the same thing with a human, I would say. Like look at what makes you uncomfortable in a situation, and then like instead of forcing your dog to be there, consider their needs a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And so we kind of have been talking about it a little bit, but so obviously I was traveling with my dogs. And so a lot of the videos on my channel are about travel, people who may want to travel with their dogs. Do you have any tips for people traveling with animals or who want to travel with their animals?
So the first point you've already brought up, I would at the beginning, which might be possible for some folks, for others, they're already on the road, then we'll take it to the next step. But have a real honest conversation with yourself about whether your dog will be happy traveling, whether all of this transportation, flights, buses, new places, new people, if that's really gonna be all right for your dog, or if you're making them like a huge disfavor by taking them around. There are some dogs that are completely fine. I often work with that with puppy clients because they want to take their small poodle somewhere or their pug. And when they start off their life and you can get them slowly used to it, then normally that's not an issue at all. But if you have a 6-year-old bulldog and they've never been in a plane, to get them on the plane and get them comfortable, that's a whole other ballpark. So
Mhm.
that's the first thing. Do you really think that your dog would be okay? And if not, maybe you have family members, maybe you have friends that love your dog and that could stay with your dog for a month or two, and then you take them out on an amazing dinner or make it up to them somehow ever. But then the second thing would be take your time. Even if your dog is kind of social, really relaxed with new environments, don't decide like on a Monday that you're going to board the plane on Wednesday and then ask yourself, well, what do I need for the dog? There's ways to get them used to what you want to do with them. And I always think about layers. So let's take the airport, for example. The airport has one layer which all other places have that we would never get a dog used to in the first place, which is the olfactory layer. Like we're practically disabled on that part. Like our dogs take so much more information out of smells, and it's super important for them. We don't get anywhere close to that. So that's an unknown that you can't work on. But let's talk about the other layers. There's a sound layer. So it doesn't sound the same if you're in your living room at home than if you're boarding a plane or if you're on the plane in the air or you're going through the security check-in. There's people that drag along their bags. There's people talking. There's these ding, 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 your flight is the gate, this and that. All of this for a dog that is so much better as well at as hearing as we are is extremely impactful. So take that out. And if you have a month, perfect. If you have 3, even better. Then try to, from the start, get that added background noise into your home. Just like you would put on a playlist with jazz, well, put on a playlist from YouTube that plays these airport sounds, that plays the sounds of an airplane just, taking off, landing in the middle of the air. All of these things exist and they're free. And then the next is tactile. So the dog will not be able to just walk around the whole time. Most of the dogs, if you're traveling in cabin, which is, by the way, the only way that I would suggest traveling often with a dog, underneath in a hole, we can talk about that later, but it's not a great idea. So if they're with you in the cabin, they will have to be in a transport bag. Don't whip the bag out 2 days before you're boarding a flight. Same thing. Get them used to it. Like put it somewhere, just in the living room. Like this is a bag. Okay. And then the dog will go and will sniff and it's going to become normal. And then you can start feeding them in there, cuddling them close to it, giving them a bone in the bag so that you construct a positive association that is not in the bag. We close the bag and then we're up.
Right.
So these are all things that you can consider, and then space out a little bit your travels. Give your dogs time to, like you have done, Keyoka, be in some place like for a month at a time or 6 weeks at a time. If you bounce around too much, there's just no way that your dogs will keep up with that, because they don't know. You know that you're going, well, from Barcelona to Ireland, and it's going to be nice there and a little bit of rain. Your dog entered the bag and the plane. They have no idea what's going on. So give them a little bit of grace.
Yeah. And I would say too, a lot of my viewers are self-proclaimed introverts. So it's like, you can imagine how intimidated you are going to a new country, going to a new place, well, anywhere where there's people, right? You're nervous, you're anxious. Imagine being a dog and not being able to leave when you want to leave, right? Like, something you helped me consider was like, okay, you know how in Spain they're like, I call them cafe dogs, like the kind of dogs that you can sit and have coffee and they're just hanging out, they're laying down. And you were like, you don't have cafe dogs because your dogs don't want to just sit and hang out. They're too alert, they're too aware, and it's just different. They just have a different personality. And I think when I stopped trying to make them do things and I just accepted who they were as animals, it made it a lot easier on me, and I think on them too, you know.
100%. And it's a funny thing because we have this pre-made idea in our heads about what life with a dog will be like and what our dog will be like. And it's so human and so normal, but it's also so unfair to them, because guess what? Most dogs are not cafe dogs. You only see the ones that are in the cafe. But that doesn't mean that all the other dogs are fine and you have the only one that's like shouting and barking at everyone and lunging and not having a good time at all. So this is just not a natural thing for most dogs to do. Just chill out in very crowded places. It should not be the norm for humans either, but here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think especially like as a society, we should be working towards being more accepting of different people, but also our pets, right? Like, it should be accepted that like not every dog is going to interact the same way other dogs do. Yeah.
Yes.
So we talked about a little bit how you would prepare a dog to travel. So like, what if you meet a person who was like me, who at that point I had already been, I mean, I think I would say it was a different environment because we started off traveling, we went to Ireland and then we went to UK, and both of those places are totally different than Spain. And we were in like the heart of Barcelona where it was very busy, very loud, so many bicycles, so many off-leash dogs. And how would you help someone who was in crisis mode like I was?
So I think one of the things that help my clients, and that includes you, it helped you a bunch, I think, in that moment, to do or to think about when they're in this crisis mode is there are no set rules. Like, you're living with your dog or dogs, and they're individuals, and it doesn't matter what you think a dog should do or should be able to endure or should. It's important that we keep yours and their stress levels down. And the first thing means often, why are you going 3 times a day for a 1.5 hour long walk? Like, who is this serving? Definitely not your dogs. You're also not on the receiving end of that one, because you come home stressed out, like a kid started to cry because your dog lunged at them, then you almost got into a dog fight with your dog, then because you wanted to get out of that situation, you almost got ran over by a bicycle. I mean, you know that. You've been there. Um, so let's cut down and just be like, okay, can we make your place, your apartment, your Airbnb, your whatever, safe for the dog? Like, if your dog is already chilling out there, well, perfect. How can we make it even more comfortable? How can we make your dog even more happy just inside and get that stress level down? I always use the bucket analogy. I always say it's like a stress bucket. We always have a little bit of stress in the bucket, but then as we go through the day and as your dogs go through the day, it's just like whoop, it goes all the way up, and then it just goes over. And that's where you get all of these odd behaviors coming, the lunging, the barking, all of it. And this bucket, you need to help them drain that bucket. So you can do that through cuddling if your dog likes that. We're back to consent here, right? You can do that with a nice little chew or bone that they like. Chewing, sniffing, licking, all of that is relaxing for dogs in general. And then just hold off with the walks. We can reconstruct the walks. We can make them just hygienic. It's fine. There's no dog trainer jury that will call you out for not taking your dog on a walk 3 times a day. It makes no sense. When I talk about this with people, and I'm like, well, but don't you have to do that? Isn't that good for dogs? Like, well, see, I consider myself a sporty person. Like I like to walk around, I like to go to the gym. But if you took me to jog somewhere, I would hate you. Like I cannot. Why? I don't understand. Like you're just running somewhere clueless to not do anything there, and then you're running back, you're all sweaty, you can't breathe. It's one of the worst exercises that I can imagine. But in general, it's good, right? Well, apply the same to the dog. Just don't stress them out. Let's all just have a cortisol vacation. Let's all just go back to normal levels. And then we can reconstruct the walks little by little, really little by little.
Yeah, I mean, that was a kind of not for it, because when you originally told me like start taking them walks, I was like, what do you mean? Like
The
this
what?
is foundational dog ownership. You're supposed to walk the dog. Like that's a thing.
Yeah.
But it's like when you look at it, how much benefit is the dog actually getting if every time we step out the front door, every time I pick up the leash, they're exactly
I'm not here. Not me, please.
like
Don't.
they want to go, but when they get there, it's one thing after another, and they're like traumatized. They come back inside and they're like high alert. Um, and then so you mentioned the bucket. How
Mhm.
long does it take for a dog to lower the bucket? Like how do we get back to one if you're in a high stress environment?
Yeah, that's a great question because stress is something we all know. Stress is something that any individual, any organism knows. But in nature, stress is only supposed to save your butt, quite literally. Like you have a stress peak because you have to fight, you have to run, you have to get yourself out of a complicated situation that could cost you your life. So far so good. So the body has a stress peak, and then it begins to go down, to break down the cortisol, break down the adrenaline, and then we go back to what is called homeostasis, or well, we go back to chill, like everything's good again. Now if you live in a highly stressful environment like is Barcelona or any other big city for that matter, you go out the door for your first walk. So there goes the first peak. Bow! Because you met another dog, your dog hates dogs, a kid wanted to touch them, they didn't see them, they're all stressed out. And then you come back home and the stress goes down little by little. And then you go for the next walk. So, bam, here is your second peak. You did not have time to let your dog chill out. There's no way. So if you keep doing that, you're never going back to baseline. And then you enter what we call chronic stress. And like in a human, chronic stress will affect the body, will affect the mind, will break down everything that you really need because it's just not normal that you're so stressed out. We know that with work as burnout. And that can also lead to really physical problems. So to help your dog bring that bucket down, which can take up to 3 days if you don't do anything. They had a big ass peak and then you wait for 3 days and they're back to normal. So it takes a long time. But you can think about does your dog enjoy doing inside, not outside again in the stressful environment, inside. Does your dog, like I said before, like to have a little cuddle, a little play or roughhousing with you? Can you offer them something to sniff? Sniffing is extremely important, but if you can't go outside, bring it inside. Do some foraging. Dogs didn't come to us with their bowl already prepared thousands of years ago. They went through our trash and then they said, well, actually, this is nice because I don't have to go hunt. Like these people seem not too bad.
So when you were like, save some of your trash and just put it in a little box and
Yeah,
have the dog sniff it out.
yeah. Give them some of their food in that box. Have them sniff it out. And as you did, most of my clients then go like, I don't want them going through my trash.
Right. I don't want them to go through my
Will that then mean that they're always going to go through my trash? Will they start going through trash like outside? No, because it's a need.
Mhm.
Imagine, well, you have to pee somewhere, right? So you ask your friends, hey, I really need to go to the bathroom. Can we stop here? Imagine your friends saying, goodness, if we stop now, Keyoka is going to want to pee in every cafe that we go past. It doesn't make sense. Like you had the need, you went, then we're fine until the next time you had a lot of water to take, right? So it's the same for dogs. Just because you don't want them to do something, it still is their need. And guess what? It will come out at some point and mostly in a way that you don't like. So prepare the trash, prepare the foraging activity ahead of time.
Yeah. And I think too, we also place a lot of demands on dogs' behavior, right? Like there's very clearly an acceptable way for a dog to behave, right? Which
Mhm.
means that the alternative is there's an unacceptable way for the dog to behave. And if you have one of those dogs, or like me, and maybe you have two of those dogs who behave in the unacceptable way, it can cause a lot of stress.
Yes.
A lot of
Um, and it causes, we're just human. It causes a lot of social pressure because it's not only you who has this image in the head of a perfect dog, it's everyone else walking around as well. And I've worked with people, they have had 4 dogs, 5 dogs, and with the 6th dog, they come to me because they can't figure it out or they moved to the city and now it's new or for whatever reason. And I tell them this kind of stuff and they're mind blown. They're like, man, that my other 5 dogs really did not have the best time because of all these demands we put on them. It's unfair. And then you feel the social pressure because everyone is looking at you like you're a bad dog owner. Like, why don't you have your dogs under control? Why is your dog behaving like that? Why is your dog not a cafe dog? And then you feel all of this stress, your bucket fills up, and then at the end of the day, you might just pay it with your dog, right? And it's unfair, but it's also human. It's a cycle, and someone has to break the cycle. And because you got your dogs in that situation, it's probably got to be you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things people can do if they are considering traveling with their dogs is do some research about the different environments that you're going to be bringing your dogs into. Um so like I would say even in the US, like I'm based in Texas right now, but I
Mhm.
know that it's a different environment completely than New York in the city, right? So it's like understanding that what's acceptable in Texas or maybe because there's not a lot of because where I stay in Dallas is not like a big city that you don't have to interact with your dog in the same way. Like your dog is going to be exposed to a different environment no matter where you go, whether you go abroad or you go to a different city. And it's just understanding where you're bringing your dog.
Yeah, and cut them some slack.
Yeah.
Even if you have already chosen the city, well, where do you want to live? Where is your apartment going to be? Is there some green space around where maybe they can have some off-leash time, or they can get a good sniff in without being ran over by electric scooter. Is there any possibility to travel outside the city? Here around Barcelona, we have amazing trails, we have big parks and at the north of the city. But if you're living in the real middle and you want to have beach access, well, it's gonna be a little bit tougher for your dog because everyone else wants this beach access too. So here we are, all 100,000 of us being
It was terrible. It was like you and I were. I remember one of our first times going on a walk together. It was like trying to figure out a safe zone in a war zone. Like it was like you were like, okay, the closest park is this far away. We got to make it down the street. And I was like, I don't know if we can make it down the street. I don't know because there's a lot going on. And
it was like a SWAT operation. Like,
like,
are we good? Are we clear? Okay, let's go.
Figure this out. So I think like if you're planning, yes, look for green spaces. Oh my God, I can't stress that. Look for the nearest park. See if there's a dog park in the park if your dog likes, interacting with other dogs. And like figuring out like where is your Airbnb or whatever it is located to where like you're not constantly putting your dog in a stressful situation every time you guys go out the door. I did not know. I picked a spot that was close to the beach because I'm thinking, okay, it's summer. I'm in Spain. I want to be on the beach. It did not occur to me. I didn't know anything about the culture of Spain. I did not know how big the bicycle vibe was. Like everybody's on an electric scooter and everybody's on a bicycle. And when I thought about it, I was like, my dogs really haven't had a lot of exposure to even like they really haven't, because in the US everybody's in a car, so you're not gonna see bikes just I mean sometimes, but it's like a one-off, so it was a madhouse. They were like, what is that? Like
Yes.
It's a new thing. Like, to be fair, if I saw like flying saucers coming at me, I would be like, what is that? Why is that like that? And I mean, it's the same thing, except I'm not barking.
Right. Yeah, but you would probably hide still or scream or try to run away, which is what our dogs do.
Exactly. Like, this is their way of saying, I don't like this. I'm uncomfortable. Can we leave, please? Like, let's not finish the walk.
Yes, exactly. And all dogs are smaller than we are, all of them. But most probably, if you plan on taking a trip or taking several trips to really be a digital nomad for a time, then chances are very high that your dog is small. So if you want to do that at home, for everyone who's watching us, put your phone on a selfie stick and just walk for like 15 minutes to walk with your dog at your dog's eyesight, like at height of where your dog's head is at. You have 2 Chihuahua mixes. So that's as small as it gets. They're like a palm off the ground. And now imagine what that looks like. It really, even for us normal stuff, if you rewatch that on the recording, it's scary.
Everything's bigger than you. Everything's bigger than you. And then there's always people, like with small dogs, everybody wants to go up to them and pet them and pick them up. And like, can you imagine as a human being if somebody, it's like you said earlier, if somebody just wanted to pick you up, it's like, wait a second.
And they're 18 meters tall.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is this?
It's crazy.
Yeah. So if this helps anyone, do not touch, pick up, talk to any dog that is not yours. Full stop. I don't care if you go with the hand. No dog needs a hand in their face. I don't care if you're crouching down. Just don't. You will know, because if the dog is just passing by, that's that. They're just passing by. You have no business touching them. And if you interact with the owner and if you stand there for a while, or it's a friend of yours or whatever, the dog will come if they're interested and they will show it. Don't be so overbearing, because again, from a small dog's perspective, it looks like someone's just creeping up on you. It's terrible. So just hands off. Appreciate them as you would artwork. Just look.
What is something annoying that dog owners and people who like dogs do?
So this is the first one. I think what I just said, just touching dogs without not the owner's consent. Often owners do not know how their dog is feeling, but without the dog's consent. Do you know what it looks like when a dog is scared, when a dog just wants to collect information? So they're just coming up to you, they're just sniffing, because that's how they do this. That's how they get all the information about you that they need. But are you sure that is because they want to be petted? I would veto that. And another one is but why? You're not going around catcalling people, or at least I hope you don't. Don't do that to dogs, because you don't know if they're scared. You don't know if they're reactive. That can set a dog off really, really quickly if they're afraid of people and here comes someone directly interacting with them. So these are all things that dog owners do to other dogs, and people who love dogs do that to dogs, that we should just be stopping. Always put yourself in the situation. What would I do? How would I feel? This is someone I don't know.
It's not received, not received well. No.
No, it's not cool. It is really not good.
Well, then how can somebody Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, so then how can somebody who, like, let's say this is a brand new concept for them, how can they understand what their dog is trying to tell them? How do they learn how to read their cues?
So there are amazing resources out there. For example, the book that I gifted you, if you want to tag that, it's from Lily Chin, Doggy Language. And it's really compact. It's the basics. It's nice to look at because it's nice little comics. So shout out to her. She's done an amazing job. And other than that, think about face of your dog and tension in the face and in the body. A happy dog will be a loose dog. Like they're just, everything is hanging. They're probably have the tongue out. Picture your typical happy golden retriever. That's like this doodly kind of body language that you want to go for. Whenever you see increased tension, and that starts with the face, and they're like, or when they have like a facelift, even if they have the mouth open, I call this a facelift. They're like, oh my God. A lot of bully breeds do that. They have this big mouth. This is not happy. It feels like they're pulled back, the ears are back, crouching, tension in the body, nothing is loose. Then you know there's something up.
Yeah. And so, like, if people have noticed, like, okay, my dog doesn't like when I do this, how can they stop themselves? I'm
Yeah.
the me question, because as you know, I have
Yes.
small dogs who I love so much. And I really just wanna pick them up and cuddle
I
them.
know. Well, think about what you're doing and what could be an alternative to this. I'm not saying like if your dog doesn't like to be picked up, that's it. You can't touch your dog anymore. You're gonna have a cat now. But it's looking at, well, how exactly did I pick them up? Or when did that happen? In what context? There's a million dogs that outside, when they're more stressed, they don't want to be touched. Like, I have to kind of manage this over here. Just bloody get your hands off. But then at home, the very same touch is super nice and comfortable to them.
Mm.
And it might just be the moment. It might be that your dog has had a rough day or they're not feeling well. And then they're just not up for you touching them in a way that in other situations they like. And if it's really something that they don't like, say they don't want to be picked up, search for another social contact that you can have with your dog. Maybe you just want to hang out on the bed, one next to the other, and then just pet their belly or fiddle with their little paws. Maybe they like that. If they don't like that, well, try something else. It's fine. Most dogs will like some kind of physical touch. There are the odd dogs that really do not want to have any of that, and that's okay too. If that's your dog, first, I'm sorry. I know we get dogs to be petting them all the time, but search for something else to do with them. Search for a nice little game that you can have, an interaction, running around outside in a yard. Anything works. And then observe and repeat or modify.
Mhm. So then what I'm hearing is it's so important for owners to just pay attention to their dogs. Like we spend a lot of time with them and they're studying us. Like there's times when I'm like, how do you know when I'm getting home from work? How do you know that it's time?
Mhm.
Like you're not watching a clock, but you're watching me. They're watching me and studying me and my behaviors. So like do the same for your animal and figure out like how do they interact when I, go to pick them up? How do they interact when I like, ruffle a bag of chips? Are they tense? Are they, excited? Watching their behavior and not projecting, but trying to understand. And something that I tried to do, or I've been trying to do, is like practicing with touch. So like one of my dogs, Bernie, is the smallest one. And I for the it's always weird talking about because it's like, am I an abuser? but
Oh, goodness. No, you did it with the best intention.
exactly. But it's like he gets picked up a lot because he's the one that looks the most chihuahua. So he's like 7 pounds and like tiny, and sometimes he's cold. But there's times when I'm like, after you and I had the training, and I was like, oh wait, he doesn't want to be picked up right now. Like, and most of the times, the good thing about Bernie is he is touch motivated. So like he'll come to me when
Yes.
he wants cuddles. He comes to me when he wants pets. Like, and so I don't always have to like go into his space and violate him in that way. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think like for me at least, something very important that I took from our lessons was that I need to be mindful of my dogs. I love them and I have the best intentions for them, but I also need to just be conscious that they're their own individual beings.
Yeah.
And I need to respect them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so deep, and I really love that we're getting this into an interview for hopefully many many other people to see. But you hit the nail on the head, and I want to circle back on one thing that you said because I think it's important. Maybe a few people out there listening to us will say, "Well, gosh, well now it turns out that I have to be so cautious, and my dog doesn't like this and doesn't want that and doesn't." I had a client that comes to mind very clearly with that. They had a galgo mix that's like greyhound, very very used for hunting here in Spain. They come very traumatized to people, and she did not want to be touched, and the owner had a very hard time with that. When I said first, well, stop touching her like that, she doesn't like it because of this, he really grappled with that concept, and it took him a few weeks to really back off and to not be touching her and not to invade her and not go to cuddle her when she was on the blanket and she would already go like, oh. So after he started that, we had the next session a few weeks after, and then he was ecstatic. He was saying, Daphne, you won't believe that, but she actually, for the first time ever since we got her, and that was a year and a half back or something, came to me for pets. Like she came and she rubbed her head on my knee, and she positioned herself in a way that then I could see she really enjoyed that. And that's the magic. Once you really back off a little bit and observe more and understand more, your
Yeah,
dogs will feel so seen. They'll be like, this is mad. Yeah,
get off of them.
yeah. And then watch what happens, because more often than not, they will say, whew, now I actually can show that one how I really like it.
Exactly. And it's a part of like strengthening the bond, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to view you as a safe place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not as a leader, not as the alpha, not as the pack, whatever. Please, let's drop this once and for all. They're family members. They really are. So think about that in whatever you do.
All right, Daphne. So where can people find you?
So I do have a website that is saving slippers, as you see it here next to my name.com. I work with people here in Barcelona, but I also work online with a lot of success. People are often afraid that, well, online won't be that, and she has to see the dogs. Trust me, I've seen hundreds of the same problems that you're facing with your dog. And it actually helps a lot of dogs because I'm not in their face. And you remember when we started, Frank was not the biggest fan of me. And it took a little bit until we really could be working with them, because I am a disruption in your dog's life. I really am. So with reactive dogs, fearful dogs, it often is better when I'm not in the mix, because then things unfold like they normally do. And we will work through video, and we will work through online calls, and we can do all of that great stuff.
And I would say also, speaking about those virtual calls, you could tell what the problem was from that consultation. Okay. We had a consultation and they were acting up.
Yeah, exactly. Because what you're saying, Keyoka, is the free consultation that I give anyone, that anyone has to do before they work with me, because this is like a little conversation where we get to know each other. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. Where we get to know your dogs, your situation, what you want to work on. I'll have a bunch of questions, and then we'll figure out, okay, what is the issue and how do we go about this? But that's completely free. And yeah, it's been a few years, so I'm pretty good at pinpointing what's going on.
Yes. Yes. And I think also like any introducing training can be kind of intimidating for people.
Mhm.
It's a process. I would say that. It's a
Yeah.
process.
And whoever says differently, that's not where you have to go. But for me, I'm not the dog trainer that will go in and train your dog. This is a very old concept, and this is not working well, because even if I did, then that's perfect. Your dog will be listening to me. Where's the benefit in for you? That makes no sense. So I'm like a consultant. I can come from the outside. I can discover your dog's personality, their needs. I can set up a plan. I can fill your toolbox. And that's exactly what I want. So that just like you, Keyoka, you can then go out, and even a year after or 3 years from now, you'll know what to do. And that's what I want to be doing.
It's quiet, isn't it?
It is really quiet. Where are the dogs?
Nap because they're relaxed.
Bless them. And you thought it was impossible. You'd gone through 2 trainers beforehand.
I was a mess. Let's just
Yeah.
say that. I was a mess back then.
And you turned that ship around. And look at you now.
Turn that ship around.
So yeah, but maybe some of the folks listening or watching us are not ready to dive in yet, and they're just interested in knowing more. I also do have a Facebook page, and I have an Instagram page. It's at Saving Slippers, and there you can follow me around, and you can sit in my DMs and ask me stuff or give me ideas on what you want to see more of. But yeah, it introduces you a little bit more to that way of seeing things and way of training, because our dogs are not little robots for us to feed with commands. That's not what it should be. Because for that, you can go out and get a robot or a teddy bear, but they're real individuals with real personalities, with real needs. And since we're the ones putting them in our homes, since we're the ones deciding every single aspect of their lives, from what they eat to who they have to meet to when they're alone to where the walks go, I think that the least we can do is to try to create a really good and really harmonious life with them.
Yes. Harmony.
Yes.
We needed harmony.
We need harmony. It's not about who does what and are you obedient or are you good in the name of. No, these people looking ugly at you outside on the street, they're not living with your dog. You have to be living with your dog in harmony, both of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Daphne online has a ton of great tips. I would say even like if you're not sure if you need dog training, you're not sure if you want dog training, she gave me amazing tips for just learning how to understand my dogs. Obviously, I was traveling, so she helped me a lot with that. But just like, I mean, we're at home and it's a peaceful environment in my home. Because I had that experience with Daphne, I was able to take some of those tips and like implement them in my daily life with my dogs and just learning how to understand them better. So go ahead and follow her. Go ahead and schedule a free consultation. Look her up. Like, this is the homegirl. This is the homegirl.
Well, I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. This is what I do every day. Like on a Saturday, if I don't have plans, you guys, I will sit in a 3-hour seminar on resource guarding. That's how geeky I am about these little guys. And that's how passionate I am about them. And they're humans. Because in the end, I really enjoy helping people. I think it's a little bit like kindergartners that get into the job because they love children, but then they can't deal with the parents. You have to take that into account. If you're in dog training, you'll deal a great lot with the parents. And I love that. And having results like yours, Keyoka, on the regular, like most really 95% of my clients have these results. And the 5% that doesn't have the result, that's because I can't be in it. I can't be doing it for you. So there is a little bit of discipline that you have to have, but it's not that much. It's mostly a change of perspective of understanding your dog and then meeting the needs. And that sets you up for great success.
Exactly. That's beautiful. Okay, so if you are watching the replay, please add your comments for Daphne. If you have any questions, if you just want to give her a follow, I have all of her information in the description box. You can find her website, you can find her Instagram, you can schedule a consultation. Again, if you have any questions for her, I'll pass them along. Put them in the comments, right? And so I'm the Awkward Black Nomad. This was a great discussion. Stay tuned for more. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Peace out.